Hello and welcome to Dee Dee Blooms. This video is a carecollab video. If you're new to carecollab videos, this is where we have a number of YouTube channels coming together to share how they care for a certain orchid. And this video happens to be about caring for Paphiopedilum orchids. This was put together by Nina from Ninja Orchids, and I have brought together my collection, which is in your view right now. These are all my Paphiopedilums I have in my orchid collection. And so if you are growing these types of orchids or are interested in it, these carecollabs are wonderful because you can have all these different environments that people might be able to grow them in. We have people all over the world that are participating and posting how they grow it in their environment and things that work for them and things that don't work for them. So that's what I'm going to share today, along with the other carecollab channels, which I hope you go and check them out. And if you also post YouTube content, feel free to reach out to Nina at Ninja Orchids and ask to be invited along on some of the future carecollabs. The more information, the better. So that's why we're here and looking at these plants today. Paphiopedilums are, as far as growing conditions, I have found easiest to thrive in wherever you can grow Phalaenopsis, the standard grocery store type orchids. That's where you can also grow Paphiopedilums. They like the same type of light conditions and temperature conditions. So they really do not like temperatures under 60 degrees. That's always my rule with these guys. I grow them in my northern window, and they never get any direct sunlight from my northern window. But it is nice and bright, and that's where I get my Phalaenopsis to also bloom, and so my Phalaenopsis thrive there, and my Paphiopedilum so far have been doing really well. I've got a couple I think I'm struggling with, and I'll point out why when I get into the details. But if you have nice northern light or any type of shaded conditions, but the light is still bright, just no direct light, that's where you really want to try to grow these as far as that portion of care. Paphiopedilums are also very different to other types of orchids. The Phalaenopsis types that you get, they don't like to be wet for too long. They like to dry out rather quickly. And the same is true for Paphiopedilums, but they really shouldn't dry out in between waterings, is what I found. So I keep mine, I would say, I water again just under moist. So you kind of have, dry, moist, wet. I never keep them wet for long term, and so I wait till I could just feel the weight of the pot, for example. I just know when it's not damp. That's the word I was trying to think of. I try to keep them damp at all times, borderline moist. Of course, they're going to be moist after you water them. Well, actually, they'll be wet, then they'll go to moist, and then they go down to damp. So that has helped me a lot. I almost rotted a couple of them, keeping them perpetually moist. Also with watering, I have found some of them do not do as well in pots just like this. I have found that self-watering setups for some of mine work better. And I'm sorry, I don't really know why. What happened, or what I learned, is that, for example, this one, we'll zoom in on the Faire-Maud. She's got these beautiful leaves here. She kept flopping over on me, like just like her leaves would just flop over. And so I kept propping them up, thinking she maybe just needed some support, but it was really the turgidity in the leaves for the moisture that she was able to uptake. And when I put her into this self-watering setup here, she has never flopped once. So there's a wick down in here. Today's watering day. I haven't watered yet, so it's dry right now. But there's these wicks, and I'll get more water in the basin. It's probably a little more dry than I would want, but she is still turgid. She's doing great. So she is definitely a Paphiopedilum that told me with her flopping as her growths matured that she needs to be able to wick her own water and drink when she needs to. The same thing happened with, this is my very first Paphiopedilum that I got from Sunset Valley Orchids 2 years ago. And I just featured her bloom in my last video. If you want to go check out her bloom, she grew this giant, I mean, just over 3 foot, I swear, long flower spike, and took forever to develop the bud and finally opened. But she was doing the same thing. She just kept flopping over the leaves, and I don't mean this way. I don't mean flopping like they're doing here. I mean like they go to the side, like they would actually twist and just flop over. You'll know the difference, and you'll know that you'll be able to feel they're not firm. The whole plant isn't moving. You can just move the leaves without this growth moving. So it's called turgidity. And so she finally told me, I've had it with this type of setup, only being in a pot. So get me in self-watering. So this is a larger one. And I have moss way at the bottom. And when I repotted her in this, I swirled the moss up. So the moss is in these little feet way at the bottom. And so when the reservoir down there has water, the moss helps to wick it up through the spiral that I put in there with the rest of the moss. So there's still bark mixed in. I think some of my, I know, a couple of where I almost rotted a couple of them, they were just in moss. So for my environment, it cannot just be moss. It's gotta be a mixture of bark and moss. And if you try to grow these and pay close attention, they're gonna tell you what they like in your environment. Some of our homes are more humid than others. Some are warmer, some are colder. So as you grow them, pay attention to what they're telling you. If they start losing a whole bunch of leaves from newer growth, something's wrong. Unpot it. Try a different mix. Try self-watering if the leaves don't stay nice and firm for you. They do communicate. A quick insert here. I noticed this after I finished making my whole video on the carecollab, so I'm just inserting this real quick. This is a new growth coming out of the Mary Mother Macabre. She bloomed for me. She started her flower spike back at last September, and then took 3 months for the bloom to finally open. So the spike grew and grew and grew. Finally the flower opened. You'll see her in some of my other videos. But shortly after her bloom started to fade, like you can see the flower starting to fade, I saw the tip of the new fan that is gonna grow. And it comes right from here, right from the base of the fan typically that bloomed. So roots are gonna wanna come out from there. So I'm probably gonna build up this media to make sure the roots have some cover and don't get dried out too quick. But it's a really good example of a new growth. And that's their cycle. So she's gonna mature this growth and bloom for me again, probably in another year to year and a half. They do go slow. So I water in the winter time. I'm gonna say close to once every 10 days. It's sometimes once a week. It just depends on my schedule too. So once a week doesn't hurt in the summertime, but it's usually more once every 10 days, the maximum 2 weeks. Now the ones in the 2 I have in self-watering, those can go longer. It just depends on their reservoir. And everybody's pretty dryish right now, so today's watering day for everybody. But everyone else I have here, all different sizes, different styles of leaves, they're all in a bark moss mix. And these are all ones that do really well so far in this mix. So I'll just give you a quick tour here. I'm going to start with the second one I ever got. It has grown really well for me. It was large when I bought it, but it's like doubled its size. Sorry, I have the tag taped here. So it's a hybrid from Sunset Valley Orchids. And you can see the name there. And she has bloomed for me a couple times. See one there, see one there. And she has been for over a year now. It's been over a year. She's growing 3 beautiful growths. Oh, I think I might have a flower spike right there. I think that's a brand new flower spike going to be coming up from that growth. So with paths, once they mature and their growths and they have the energy, if you've been feeding them, so we'll talk about fertilizer next, they'll shoot out their bud for you. So I'd have to take a flashlight and see if there's little hairs on that one. If there's little hairs, it's most likely a flower bud or a spike starting to form. But I'll post some pictures of what her flowers look like, and they're kind of Little Shop of Horrors to me looking. Got some tendrils, some dark bold colors, and she's what they call a strap leaf Paphiopedilum, and they do grow larger. They definitely grow a lot larger than the mottled leaves varieties. They can, well, because of their size, they're going to drink a lot more water too. But if you have them in a larger pot, you know, pay attention to your pot size. If you have them in an oversized pot, you don't want to water too much either. So it's a fine balance depending on pot size and the size of your plant. So just think of how they're drinking water, they're trying to hydrate, and how much they need to keep their leaves nice and turgid. I'm going to keep using that word turgid because it's the best word I could think of. Nice and firm leaves. You can't just easily bend them. They don't flex and just flop over. Now I'm wishing I had taken some little video clips or pictures of the flopping over so I could show you better. So this will be one of my largest ones. She's just going to get bigger and bigger, and she will be a very large specimen piece, hopefully eventually, if I continue to do right by her. Back here is a nice mottle leaf variety, a little muted in the pattern, but she's going to be a larger type version. And this one I got from Nat's Orchids, which is a nursery in Illinois, going on about a year ago. And this hybrid is the Larry Sexton. I honestly can't remember because it's been so long since I bought her what the flower is supposed to look like. This one I really just love the darkness of the leaves. So if you look at the Faire-Maud here, you can see the variations in the different leaves. And back here again to the Mother Mary Macabre. So I just love, I'm a collector. I love the different looks. Here's another one, a little more dark enhancing. You got the lighter green in there. This is a Paph Makuli-Curtissii, Maudiae. I don't know if that says Maudiae again, Napa Valley. This one I got from an Etsy vendor a year and a half ago, approximately. Here's a a newer acquisition, and I also posted a video on the henryanum. So this is a henryanum hybrid. And so you'll see, if you check out the other video, when this was in bloom, she had 2 beautiful flowers and just gorgeous. I can't take credit for those flowers. She went into bud shortly after I purchased her, which is about 6 months ago from Sunset Valley Orchids. At the same time, 6 months ago, I got the Paph stonei'Red hybrid. Unfortunately, when I pulled this tag out, I ripped off some roots. I'm really upset about that. You could see these fuzzy roots. They're not like your phalaenopsis with the smooth outer velamen. They're root skin. They're fuzzy and they attach, and I should have been more gentle. But she is going to be a larger plant eventually. She's got these really long, thin, strappy type leaves. And this one stonei'Red is a species, henryanum is a species. They tend to grow slower, but especially stonei'Red is known for being slow growing. So I'm gonna have to have lots of patience with this one. But if you look up what the flowers look like, it's gonna be so worth it. So beautiful. So this one has not bloomed for me yet. So far, out of all the ones I've shown so far, the only one that hasn't bloomed, or the ones that haven't bloomed, is this one. Larry Sexton has not bloomed for me yet. And stonei'Red, and also this next one here, Paph Fumi's Delight. It's micranthum crossed with armeniacum. And got her real tiny through Cal Orchid a 1.5 years ago. Almost 2 years. This June it'll be 2 years. And I almost lost her. I almost rotted this one. But she has come back really, really nicely. And her leaves are just gorgeous. They're all this variation of these different colors and patterns. One of my other green strap type leaf orchids, they kind of call these the bulldog orchids. It looks like, again, a Little Shop of Horrors flower. This is also one of my first ones. So this is actually, yeah, this is got this one way at the beginning. So 2 years ago. That's when I first started in my first Paphiopedilums, and I'll find a picture. It was in bloom when I bought it, and it has not bloomed since. It is very slow growing, and I don't know if that's because of my care, but it has been maturing 2 new growths very, very, very slowly. And the 2 new growths have like risen up above the medium, so I've supplemented with moss. The thing with Paphs is you need to have them potted up to about here, because they can grow roots at any time, and if those roots try to grow in air, they just dry up and abort. And you want as many roots as you can get with a Paphiopedilum. They don't tend to be growing roots a lot, so whatever roots grow, you want to support them. So probably within the next few weeks, I am repotting this. I'm getting it into a deeper pot and making sure to bring it up. I don't know if you could see here. See that coloring there? So it's too high up. It needs to be, the medium needs to be like right up where that coloring and green start. So I'm gonna keep a close eye on it until I get to repot it. But whichever ones bloom, I'll try to insert to the side a picture of it. The next one I have here is a Venustum cross. This one I got at Christmas time, or January, I think. I've not had it very long. Oh gosh, no, I'm changing my mind, changing my memory. I'm pretty sure it was like September, before Christmas. So I've had it 6 months, and 2 months into having it, it threw out a bud, and I posted a video of the bloom. So I will show a picture of that Very cute, adorable. It should stay smaller. That's Sunset Valley Orchids. I have a lot from Sunset Valley Orchids. This is another Sunset Valley Orchids. You can see again the different pattern on the leaves. This is a species, Paph callosum. It's not bloomed for me yet. I see possibly a little leaf. I think that's another leaf starting. It could possibly be a flower bud coming up too. It's got to come out a bit more for me to see if it has little hairs. If the growth has a little hair or little hairs on it, it's a flower spike. So Paphiopedilums make it really easy once they poke their stuff out a little bit more to tell whether it's just a new leaf or actually flower spike. Here I have just the straight species Venustum. So I have a hybrid version over here, and here's the actual species as it grows in the wild. And just gorgeous. It's a baby one. I got this from High Desert Orchids, I'm gonna say about 8 months ago. And it's just been growing along, and I hope I do well with it. One of the things I love about this one, look at that coloring even under the leaf. So pretty. That maroon burgundy look. Another one that is from, this is Sunset Valley Orchids, is a hybrid with Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh is a very popular Paphiopedilum, and this is crossed with a Delinati. And it was in bloom when I bought it from Sunset Valley Orchids, and it has not bloomed for me since. And I got this one at least a year and maybe 8 months ago. It's close to one of my very first ones, but it's maturing these new growths in multitude. I have a ton of new growths, and this one also just, you look at the undersides and it's just gorgeous. So everything about Paphiopedilums to me is just wonderful, whether they're in bloom or not. Even the strap leaf, I love this. It's like beautiful art. So I don't think you can go wrong with these in any type of home for a decorative plant. My smallest one, and I'm trying to think, I think my newest acquisition through Seattle Orchids is this Paph Pinocchio. Some sort of hybrid. It's a little baby one, and I need to repot it. I want to get it some fresher medium. It's been doing okay in here though. So I've just kind of let it settle into my environment. I think I got this one about 6 months ago, 5 months ago. My other little tiny one, which is also a newer acquisition, but I've had it probably closer to 7 months, is a Paphiopedilum henryanum. And I think I got this one from Norman's Orchids. I'm pretty sure. This one's gonna be big, I think. I mean, look at these leaves. Long leaves, it's got multiple growths. If you look up the flower, it's so beautiful. Again, these have not bloomed yet. They're just babies. And then the three that I've struggled with, I've had these for almost 2 years from Sunset Valley Orchids. I went back to Sunset Valley Orchids because I got the big one, and I got another big one, and then I got this one from a different orchid nursery and had these big ones. And then I saw online there are miniature ones. There's ones that make little Paphiopedilum flowers instead of the big Paphiopedilum flowers. So these guys are little, and some of them are not doing the greatest. You can see that leaf discoloration. I think this one's gonna bounce back for me though. I got 2 good new growths. This one's actually this one's been doing okay, no problems. This is my worst off one. But let me point something out real quick. So this is Niveum crossed with thaianum. This is leucochilum crossed with thaianum. And then this is carecollab crossed with thaianum. They all have thaianum, and they all are growing very slow. This one started losing its original growth and then turning yellow, but thankfully I thought it was a goner, but then it shot out these 2 new growths. So I've been very, very carefully, mostly just watering on the side in case what I was doing possibly was rotting things. I couldn't really tell. I repotted into fresh media. And when I did that, I didn't find any rot, but it did not seem happy. And I think that yellowing is some sort of deficiency. So I've made sure to stay on a regular fertilizing regimen, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I've already talked about light, I've already talked about watering, and I'm going to talk about fertilizing real quick here. We're at the end of me introducing everything here. This one, the middle here, you can't tell, but the original growth, it's still got the flower spike sitting in there, but the growth is gone. So this is a new growth that grew off of the original growth, and this is a new growth. So I'm hoping someday I'll get cute little Paphiopedilum blooms from that one. And then this one has no roots. Absolutely no roots. So I've got them propped in here on top of the bark with some moss underneath the bark. And I water this one extra to try to keep the humidity level to hopefully inspire some roots to grow. But it has stayed firm. And it's also got that yellowing. They're all turgid. The leaves are turgid, but they're not attached. And I'm sorry, I don't want to lift this up. And I mean, I could just lift it up, but what if a little root started? I don't want to risk that. So it's not been all success. So cross your fingers for this little guy or girl, gal. I hope she makes it. And they all had either, when I bought them, they were in bloom, or they had a flower bud and they then bloomed for me after I brought them home. So I'll find pictures to show you what this one looked like, and then what this one looked like, and then what this one looked like. And you're gonna agree, I don't wanna lose any of them. They are adorable. So that's my whole collection, but to continue on the care, which is the focus of carecollab, fertilizing. So with my Phalaenopsis, I do what's called a weekly, and a 4th week flush. So if you research how to feed your orchids, for Phalaenopsis, they like consistent feed. They don't need as much when they're in flower. In fact, you can kind of stop when they're actually in flower. But while they're growing their leaves and their roots, think of it as vegetative growth, they need food. And that food helps to store up the energy so then when it is time for blooming and they halt, a lot of times most orchids, they halt their vegetative growth and then put all their energy into the blooming. All that food you gave them sustains that and helps to promote a good show. Now, with any type of orchid, you want to research how to fertilize them, though, because one of the worst things and one of the quickest ways you can kill an orchid, besides overwatering, is over-fertilizing. They can be super sensitive, and that's probably why a lot of people are intimidated. So with my standard Phalaenopsis types orchids, I do the weekly with a 4th week flush. Well, when I'm doing that, I'm also coming around and I'm watering my Paphiopedilums, but I'm not giving them the fertilizer after I giving them the straight water every week. I fertilize them during their vegetative growth time about every 2 to 3 weeks. Definitely at least once a month. But now that spring is here and summer, and I can see more and more they're pushing their vegetative growth, I'm going to try to make sure I'm giving them food after, because with any orchid, you water them first with straight water, and then you water them with fertilizer water, because you never want to water an orchid originally with fertilizer water. You can burn their roots. Please remember that. So, and remember, these guys have fuzzy roots. I think that makes them even more susceptible to getting scorched by extra minerals and nutrients in fertilizer water. So always wet water them good, and then do your fertilizer water. So with these guys, I'm ramping up on every 2 weeks. Throughout the winter, like most orchids, you don't fertilize as much. And you don't have to water as much because it's colder. And maybe you've heard cold, damp at night can be the death of an orchid. That's a thing. It's true. So this winter I pulled back a lot on watering, and I also pulled back on fertilizing. Now I have a number of them in my collection that actually wintertime is their main growth time. And actually summertime is when you slow down. So there are exceptions in the orchid world. But these guys, do not over fertilize them. So fall, winter, once a month I think is fine. Spring, summer, every other week. So that's how I do that. Now I do slow release fertilizer pellets. And I'm not very good at it. I usually average every 6 to 9 months replenishing, but try to replenish. And you only need a few little fertilizer pellets. Now, if it's a bigger one, you could go with like six of those little tiny granule fertilizer pellets. So I also have those in here. And right now, I know the majority of these are way past 6 months. So besides doing some repotting to get some lower down in their pots, like this is a good example. This one got too high in the pot. So I repotted it in this nice fresh bark mix, I don't know, maybe 7 months ago, and it's doing great. So besides, whenever I repot, I replenish the slow release fertilizer pellets. But then it's also trying to remember, well, when do I redo the next 6 months? So this one I repotted January. So it wasn't 7 months ago. Wow, my memory's going bad. So January, so this summer I need to put in some more slow release pellets if I can stay on every 6 months. But I'm starting to try to write, let's see, do I have any others? I'm trying to write on them when they're repotted. The date, the month and date at least. Did I do this on this one? Nope. So I'm going to say about the past 4 months, I really started writing the month and day. Because I can't keep track. I have too many now. So that's my collection. That's how I care for these lovely gals. I love that you can have such a variety. They're so easygoing. Just got to follow a few simple rules. Keep them out of direct light. Make sure they are kept at least damp. Don't let them dry out too much between waterings. They can handle a little bit, but not much. You would not want them to be super dry for more than maybe 2 days, honestly. So those fuzzy roots, you risk it. And then for fertilizer, fall, winter, back off and just fertilize once a month. And spring, summer, fertilize every other week. Now, again, you're going to have some that they're really growing. So there's always exceptions. So it's hard for me to give you these hard and fast rules, but it's a good start. So if you see any exceptions where one of your Paphiopedilums is just really gangbusters, growing multiple growths, then go ahead and stay on the every 2 weeks. Let them talk to you. And a reminder, some of them do so much better in self-watering. I'm not going to do all of them in self-watering because if they're doing well as they are, I don't want to mix that up. But boy, I know this summertime, self-watering is going to be, I'm not going to have to worry about these two. These guys, I'm going to have to keep up and make sure they don't dry out for too long because it can get hot here. I'm in Southern California. So I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry it's so long. I really try to keep my videos smaller, but I think this was a really important one, and I wanted to show you guys all the different kinds that I have because I think it's a pretty good variation as to leaves, sizes, and different types of care. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned some stuff. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you enjoyed the information, I'd love a thumbs up. But again, I love comments, questions. I work hard to try to reply to each and every one. And thank you so much. And again, please check out all the other channels that participated in this Care Collab. I'm going to have their information and link their videos in my comment section, so you can go right to them, and I bet you'll learn a ton more than I could ever tell you about these guys. So enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, and again, thank you so much.